Okay, welcome everybody to Bath and North East Somerset Council's special cabinet meeting. Welcome everybody. Just a reminder to switch off your mobile phones or switch them to silent, please. It's very kind. Let's make the following announcement reference webcasting. This cabinet meeting is being filmed and the recording will be available on the council's website. The images and sound recording may also be used for training purposes within the council. Anybody speaking that does not wish to be filmed should make themselves known to the camera operator. We'll start off by introducing the Cabinet as per normal. We'll go around. Councillor Warren, please.
Hi, I'm Councillor Sarah Warren, Councillor for Bath Avon North Ward and Cabinet Lead for Climate Emergency and Sustainable Transport.
Thank you, Sarah. Councillor Bourne.
Hi, I'm Alison Bourne. I'm the Councillor for Widcombe and Lincoln Ward and Adult Social Care and Public Health.
Thank you, Alison. Councillor May.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Paul May. I'm the Councillor for Whitchurch Village and Pensford, and I'm the Cabinet Member for Children and Young People.
Thank you, Paul. Councillor Ball.
Councillor Tim Ball, Tourism Ward, Cabinet Member Neighbourhood Services.
Thank you, Tim. Councillor Rigby.
Evening, everybody. Councillor Amanda Rigby, Cabinet Member for Highways and representing Bathwick Ward.
Amanda. Councillor McCabe.
I'm Matt McCabe. I'm Councillor for Bath Avon South and I'm the Cabinet Member for the Built Environment, Housing and Sustainable Development.
Thank you, Matt. Councillor Roper.
Good evening, Councillor Paul Roper, Councillor for Kingsmead Ward and Cabinet Member for Economic and Cultural Sustainable Development.
Thank you, Paul. Councillor Elliott.
Mark Elliott, I'm one of the ward members for Lansdowne Ward and I am Cabinet Member for Resources.
Thank you, Mark. Well, we're just going to do the emergency evacuation procedure. Over to you.
If the continuous alarm sounds, you must evacuate the building and proceed to the assembly point. From this room, you follow the green running person signs to the exit, using either the marble staircase at the end of the building nearest to Bath Abbey or the main staircase. Please do not use the lifts. The assembly point for this building...
Apologies for absence. We've got one. That's Councillor Dave Wood. So we'll move to declarations of interest. We've received one. That's correct. Would you like to read that out, please?
Yeah, Councillor David Wood has declared a disclosable pecuniary interest for all items on this agenda due to his employment as Chief Executive of Avon Needs Trees. He therefore is not attending the meeting and will not take part in any decisions. He also didn't attend the pre-meeting.
Thank you very much. So urgent business agreed by the Chair. There is none. So we'll move to questions from the public and councillors. We've received 12 questions from councillors and 2 questions from the public. Now there's an opportunity for councillors to ask a maximum of 2 supplementary questions. And we'll start with Councillor Jackson. I believe you have a supplementary question, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'd like to start, though, by complimenting Councillor McCabe on the successful recruitment of essential posts in planning and planning policy, and not to mention the team that most residents care most about in Westfield and Redstock, namely the enforcement team. So well done. Obviously, for reasons of confidentiality, this could not be revealed when I submitted the question about staffing. However, the second part of my question remains. To what extent has the local plan and its delivery, especially with regard to the Somer Valley Enterprise Zone, been future-proofed with contingency plans B should the predicted economic downturn take place? And I would say, by the way, that as a former university lecturer, an essay with 2,000 words meeting the learning outcomes will suffice as an answer to my first question. Do you want my second question as well?
Councillor McCabe, are you happy to oppose the same time? Yeah.
Right, so the first question is what to do about the downturn. Are you prepared? The second one, if this happens, and actually looking at the local plan generally, are you convinced that the provision for the elderly who do not have smartphones and apps and internet and the disabled is sufficient in the various schemes that are outlined in the local plan?
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Councillor McCabe, would you like to reply?
Yeah, so obviously the local plan covers a long period. so 20 years, during which there are likely to be times of economic buoyancy and economic downturn, which is why the government builds in this allowance to review it after 5, 10 and 15 years to do a partial update. The local plan also seeks to be flexible in enabling economic uses to come forward at different times and be delivered in key locations. So we try and make it attractive and responsive to demand. The 5-year review takes account of any changes, and it's not just about providing new employment economic space or protecting existing space. So the options document also includes policy to facilitate and support reskilling and training if that's required at any stage during the next 20 years. In terms of the second point, the consultation process will involve some in-person meetings, I think 7 in total across the authority area. There will be some online ones, but obviously that's the point you're making. The hard copies of the local the options document will be available in all our libraries. So anyone who wants to work with a hard copy can visit the libraries. Also, the local plan will be subject to an equalities impact assessment and the consultation part of that as well, and that will highlight opportunities to address the needs of protected groups, and also how we, because the local plan itself will address how we develop communities that our ageing population can thrive in. So part of that is obviously how we approach consultation as well. I hope that's okay.
Thank you, Councillor McCabe. We'll move to Councillor Ross. I believe you have 2 supplementary questions.
Yes, Steve, thank you. Thank you very much. I'd like to thank Councillor Roper for responding to my query about the Greenbelt agricultural land being used instead of brownfield sites. However, I would like to ask, because it didn't really talk about the land itself, the quality of this land is very rare in Baines and should be protected for our future food security. Have any considerations been given to the fact that the plot is prime Grade 1 agricultural land that grows high quality produce for the local area and is also potentially irreplaceable priority grassland habitat, as once it's gone, it is gone forever? Thank you. That's the first one. They're kind of all different things, so...
Yeah, no, sure. Councillor Roper.
Well, firstly, thank you, Councillor Ross, for giving me your questions in advance, because I could take some advice on them. As it happens, the records held on the website from the Bristol Regional Environmental Records Centre, BRERC, they indicated that priority grassland habitats were present in SVES, but it's actually not the case. The record was wrong. The Council published BRERC potential and confirmed priority habitat records to ensure full consideration is given to habitats impacted by development. The BRERC records relating to the site date back to 1995 and 2000, and they highlighted fields that at the time had potential to be priority habitats, subject to additional survey work to establish grassland type and condition. The Council has undertaken recent survey work for the LDO site, confirming these fields are modified grassland in poor condition, habitats that are not a priority or irreplaceable. And the mapping has since been updated to separate potential and confirmed priority habitats records for clarity. The provisional agricultural land classification produced by Natural England shows a large swathe of Grade 1 land running through the west of the Somer Valley. In short, there's lots of it. And Natural England, as a statutory consultee, has not objected to the LDO proposals subject to conditions set out in the Statement of Reasons. Thank you.
You have a second supplementary question, Councillor Ross?
Thank you for that, Councillor Roper. And my second one, in respect of how people actually get to the site, there was note of the cycle route and walking routes. While providing choice is a good thing, there appears to be a little incentive for anyone to actually use this. How does the limited provision from Old Milson, Norton, Radstock, Greenway benefit residents who live in the farther areas of Summer Valley, such as Farnborough, which is where I come from? Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. I will answer your question, but I'd also refer you to actually one of the questions which were to Councillor Warren, which was about active travel, and if I can just quote from that question first of all. However, the Active Travel Master Plan, which is also currently in development, is a longer-term strategy for the delivery of a network of active travel routes across the entirety of Bath and North East Somerset. This will include aspirations for active travel improvements between all major centres of employment and education. Now, I'd add further to that this authority, as you know, is committed to developing active travel, and clearly, if the SFES site is brought forward, we will be looking at additional active travel routes, and I'm sure this one will be considered. There will be an issue about the timing. We'll need to see what the availability of CRSTS funding is, because I believe the existing funding round expires in 2027. So we'll have to see if there's money there. But I can assure you, as a keen cyclist, we will be absolutely pushing to promote active travel and extending cycle routes. Having travelled through the two tunnels for the last 7 years on my way to work in a safe space, I recognise how valuable it is to have a safe, active travel route. So we will be promoting that as much as possible.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Councillor Ross, for your supplementary questions. We'll move on to item 7, statements and petitions from the public and councillors. Normally I'd ask people to come down, but you can stay where you are, and for those who've not done this before, you have 3 minutes. When you're ready, Michael will turn on the light, it'll go green, and then when it's red, your 3 minutes are up. I normally allow a little bit of time, but if I do interrupt you, it's because the red light's been on for some time. So I will let you start. We'll start with Mr. and Mrs. Flower. You hit yes? When you're ready, we'll start. Can you switch the red button on, yes?
Sorry?
You switch the red button on for the microphone.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Brilliant, thank you.
So, my husband and I we live at a railroad farm. We are the landowners of one of the parcels that you're dealing with. And Railroad Farm has been in the Flower family since 1956. Barry took over the running of it at the age of 21. We have farmed and looked after this land for the last 54 years. We raised a family here and have a grandson of 18 who wishes to carry on the tradition of farming on the farm he has grown up on. The Summer Valley Enterprise Zone and its local development order tears apart our plans and aspirations for the future of our farm, especially our grandsons. Excuse me. Royal Oak Farm is classed as Grade 1 agricultural land. We understand it is government policy to protect the best and most versatile BMV land from significant, inappropriate or unsustainable development proposals. So how can it be that Baines are going to tear up this prime agricultural land that is used for food consumption to build an industrial park that the majority of the local people do not want or see the need for? The long period of uncertainty and limited information has caused us untold stress and anxiety, as we have found it very hard to get clear information from the Council over the last 7 years. The dialogue has been irregular, with long gaps of non-communication. We have tried to engage with the Council. We have commented on plans tabled, but even with some revisions, the plans will have a detrimental effect on our home and significantly harm our farming business, cutting our yearly income in half. Our main concerns, which we have already raised with the Council, are as follows. Royal Oak Farm is our land. The Council wants to take some of our land for the enterprise zone, and we have not consented to this. The Council must justify the huge impacts on us, and we do not see the Council has done so. We do not believe a demand for the scheme exists. Secondly, the size, scale, height and character of the development, along with the traffic and flow of people it will bring, will completely change the look and feel of our home, our land and surrounding area. It is not an appropriate development for this area. Our one building nearly touches our boundary with no tree screening, and the office block will completely overshadow our home. This will have a huge detrimental impact on our enjoyment of the property, our general well-being, our mental well-being, and the Council has repeatedly failed to acknowledge this. The proposed development will sever our land to the north of the site. We have not been given any clarity on how we will access our fields, who will control access, what limits on access might there be, who keeps the access route clear, who maintains it, will it be designed to be fit for our use? If we can't easily access this part of the farmland, we will not be able to continue what will be left of our farming business, and it will be destroyed. In summary, we stand firmly against the LDO being granted and the development being allowed to go ahead. We do not consent to the use of our land as part of the enterprise zone, and we do not believe the speculative development is in the right place or is necessary. Thank you.
Thank you for your statement, Mr. Farrer. Second speaker is Ingrid Barber. Ready to go, Ms. Barber. Ready?
Good evening. I'm Ingrid Barber, an accountant working as a freelance finance director across all industries. I represent an official group of opposers with hundreds of members who do not want the proposed site to be developed. There are close to 600 objections on the planning portal, including important stakeholders such as Poulton, Farrington Gurney and Ston Easton Parish Council, Midsummer Norton and Radstock Town Councils, the owners of the proposed land, the Green Party, the CPRE, Natural England, individual Baines councillors and the owners of Poulton House. Even 6 of Baines' own internal departments object, and others have concerns. The land will have to be acquired by a compulsory purchase order. CPOs are not only risky and expensive, but create significant reputational damage, especially as it is Grade 1 agricultural land under threat. At scrutiny panel, the project team stated that 80-bedroom hotel, chain pub and food outlets could be built before anything else. This would be a disaster for small businesses, who we should be doing everything to protect. The localised road mitigations are so minimal they would not even alleviate the current volumes, let alone the predicted increase of at least 4,000 movements per day. There are no plans for green routes to get to the site, other than the small extension of the Greenway and a reliance on Wecker for delivering a segregated cycle path from Farrington. But how will all of the other villages get to the site without driving? Reintroducing first bus services to the area is only a possibility and not a given. The papers state very high cost to delivering the enabling infrastructure, which seems certain to be cut first with budget scrutiny. At a time when councils are under the spotlight for monetary issues, is this proposal really the right thing to do? And are Baines confident they have considered every aspect of this proposed development sufficiently as to avoid a judicial review? Liberal Democrats promote democracy. Therefore, wouldn't the optimum solution be to work with the community and listen to their ideas rather than dictate what you think they need? The SFES team have not listened to the public or local councils and have barely changed plans between consultations. We ask the Cabinet to please remove the proposed SFES from the local plan options and work with the community for future beneficial development. Thank you.
Thank you for your statement, Mr. Barber. Move to Anne Huckle. Start whenever you're ready. Yep.
As a resident of Clapton on the edge of the EZ and member of the Ston Easton Parish Council, I have grave concerns with regard to the EZ. My understanding is that there is a high probability that a distribution centre will form part of the development. In addition to the EZ commuter traffic, this will bring huge increases in lorry traffic and delivery vans, which is unsustainable for the local road network, including known bottlenecks on the A37 at Pensford and Temple Cloud, and also in the immediate EZ area, despite the proposed road improvements. My greatest concern is for the hamlet of Clapton, just a mile from the EZ. Whilst traffic surveys may have been done, they did not cover all impacted areas, nor do they reflect the reality where drivers take the most direct route to a destination. This means traffic heading to and from the EZ will drive along Clapton's unclassified lanes, since they lead directly to a new roundabout which is part of the EZ road development proposal. Recent roadworks in Midsummer Norton, Chilcompton, Poulton and Radstock have proved that drivers use Langley Lane, Greenditch Lane and Clapton Road as rat runs to the A362 at Farrington Gurney. Thus, we in Clapton have lived with the danger of a constant stream of additional traffic along our single-track lanes, making walking, cycling and horse riding not pleasurable but life-threatening, and I'm not exaggerating here, I promise you. Even driving to work, to medical appointments or to the shops has proved difficult, requiring planning to ensure that travel is outside peak school and commuter travel times, not something to be expected in a hamlet of 60 homes. Baines has created low emission zones in Bath, but seems content that heavy traffic is directed to Midsummer Norton, Radstock, Poulton, Farrington Gurney, Clapton and other surrounding villages. From Clapton's perspective, if this ill-thought-out scheme proceeds, Baines have a moral responsibility to consult with Somerset Highways and also to make financial provision to ensure that measures are put in place that will prevent the single-track Langley's Lane, Clapton Road and the centre of Clapton becoming dangerous rat runs to and from the EZ. The Somer Valley has progressed from its industrial mining past and developed into a new, unique balance of working farms, green space, fields and woodland on the edge of its small communities, providing residents with a valuable green environment. People have chosen to live in this rural area and want it to remain. Our countryside must not be torn up by Baines to create a soulless industrial park that could be anywhere in the UK, nor are villages and farmland blighted by the consequences of increased industrial and commuter traffic. So I urge you to be brave in your decision making. Do not go backwards with a soulless development, but instead maintain our heritage by supporting the development of empty properties to bring jobs to the area, thus preserving both our heritage and countryside for future generations. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Heffernan. Okay, we'll move to, Margaret Heffernan next, is that right? Thank you, Margaret. We'll start when you're ready.
I'm a professor at the School of Management at the University of Bath. I run 2 businesses in the UK and 3 in the US and published 6 business books. And I'm not saying this to big myself up. I'm doing it to suggest I have some experience and understanding of business. I'm also a parish councillor for Farrington Gurney for over 5 years. In the business world, there's a mantra: build it and they'll come. It's not a strategy, it's a warning, because it isn't true. Entrepreneurs and organizations who build new stuff thinking the sheer wonder of it will attract customers and success, they mostly fail. Too many assumptions, too little insight, too little listening, and a dream turns into a nightmare. I quote it because that, to me, is the strategy of the spheres. It might or might not have a hotel. It might or might not have a food outlet, which might or might not be fast food. Maybe offices, maybe not. Maybe tech, maybe not. Somehow, the so-called strategy goes, it'll be all right. Once we've built it, companies will come, and, well, if they don't, we'll pay them to come. But there is no single attracting factor, no unique selling point at the heart of this project. Why would a business want to come to the spheres? Asked at scrutiny, nobody could give a decent answer. At the moment, the Farrington Gurney is caught between the A37 and the A362. I stayed overnight with my sister in London last night. In Hackney, I can tell you it was quieter in Hackney than it is in Farrington Gurney. But what concerns my neighbours even more is what is going to come next. Lots more noise, lots more pollution, in an age where pollution kills more people than smoking, a ton of disruption, and if it ever does lure customers, a bunch of local businesses that are already very successful in our community are undermined by fast food and the cheap prices that only big businesses can afford. Whether that is an economic net gain, losing existing businesses to get new ones, remains to be seen. 16 years, nearly £2 million spent on developing this proposal, and still it has come up with nothing compelling or critical. I agree that the so-called consultation has been dreadful. It's eroded public trust when it could have built it, at a time when public funds are sorely needed for schools, for hospitals, for the arts, for public safety. I can't believe so poor a project really takes priority. Please do not throw our good money after bad.
Thank you for your statement, Mrs. Heffernan. We'll move to Andy Jeffrey, please.
I am Andy Jeffrey, a business owner currently employing 63 local people. I am a farmer producing organic vegetables for use on site and for various box delivery schemes in the Bath and Bristol area. I am also Vice Chairman of Farrington Gurney Parish Council and have been the parish's representative on the SVES stakeholder group since it started. Apart from the Parish Council's opposition to the SVES, I would like to highlight other concerns I have about it. As a farmer, I am appalled at the prospective loss of over 30 acres of the best agricultural land in the country. It is classed as Grade 1 on the National Land Classification Map. Grade 1 is land that has no limitations on agricultural use. In other words, can grow any temperate crop. There are only tiny pockets of Grade 1, as most is Grade 3. Government policy is to protect the best and most versatile agricultural land from significant development proposals. In addition, the road widening at Sunnyside will take more Grade 1 land, and in fact this land is also organic and grows vegetables. There is also the prospect of losing an extra 16 acres of farmland to fulfil the bionet gain requirement, more land that will not produce food in future. The effect of SVES on many local businesses will be profoundly adverse. Firstly, the inclusion of a fast food restaurant was not in the original plans for the SVES. This will hit many local cafes and restaurants, many of whom rely on passing trade. This is meant to be an industrial park, not a retail park. Secondly, I am astonished that a pub is included in the SVES plans. Nationally, the pub trade is in crisis, with over 2 pubs per day closing in 2023 due to higher staff and energy costs and dwindling consumer spend. This is meant to be an industrial park, not a retail park. Thirdly, I understand that 56 new workshops may be given the go-ahead next to the Old Mills industrial estate. Whilst these may be needed, there is already a shortage of labour locally, as evidenced by the low unemployment figures for Baines. Hence, the SVES and the Old Mills site will create labour shortages in all local businesses. Fourthly, I cannot understand the inclusion of a large office block at the front of the SVES site. Working from home is now common throughout industry, and only last year Baines closed the Wansdyke Business Office block because it made losses. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jeffrey. We've got James Wellman reading out on behalf of Councillor Morgan, is that correct? James? No, I've got James. No, if I say you're next, you're definitely next, yeah.
My name's James Wellman. I'm the current chair of Farrington Gurney Parish Council. I'm also a small business owner running a bed and breakfast which has been in Farrington Gurney for about 35 years. And I moved to the countryside to experience the countryside in the city. I'm here to address the council on behalf of Anne Morgan, Councillor Anne Morgan, who can't be here tonight because she's unwell. So this is her statement, not mine. As a new ward councillor, Anne feels that it's important to highlight her ward's residents' concerns to Cabinet, particularly the concerns from Farrington Gurney, which adjoins the Summer Valley Enterprise Zone site, as well as her own concerns and hopes. The biggest worry Anne is hearing from residents is that the proposals are for an outmoded development design which would increase pollution, both from environmental and from traffic. Since before Anne's election, she has made it clear that she did not support SVES and in its original form, and it felt that it should be radically redesigned. Anne's understanding is that alternative sites are unsuitable, but there is now great concern that this enterprise zone, first mooted in 2007, is out of date now in terms of working practices and jobs. None of us have a crystal ball, of course, but one thing is certain: the SVES is originally presented form would have created more traffic pollution and has a detrimental effect on the very environment her party, the Liberal Democrats, mission is to protect. Anne could quote some of the statistics on land and employment, etc., but she'd like to take it down to the very basics: jobs, people and housing. Part of what is being proposed is that there's a need in the area for more industrial types of employment. To balance this, there is a need for housing, as it's seen in the local plan document, and it is believed that those two will be perfectly to marry up. Housing in the village most affected, which is Farrington Gurney, will be of such high value that any purchaser would probably have to work in Bristol and Bath to afford them. There is concern that this would increase traffic even more of an already saturated arterial routes in entirely unsuitable villages. Someone working in an industrial unit in the enterprise zone may struggle to afford housing locally. She imagines a 3 and 4 bedroom new build in Farrington Gurney is already expensive, and 70% of expensive is still expensive. And has read the commitment paper and welcomed the change of tone to reflect that this could be better, a greener enterprise zone. And notes the commitment to ensure that the active travel and public transport options would be available from the start of the development to ensure workplaces are accessible to everyone, not just those who can afford a car.
Mr. Wellman, the time is up, but yeah. Sorry. Yeah, I'll let you just wrap the last sentence.
So it's just one sentence. So she asked Cabinet to stay strong on these commitments. Cabinet should remain aware that residents will be paying close attention to their every step. We need to be greener, we need to be better.
Thank you, Mr. Wellman, for reading that out on behalf of Councillor Morgan. Jim Plunkett-Cole next. Mr. Plunkett-Cole, ready when you are.
Hi, I'm Jim Plunkett-Cole, a professional economic development practitioner living in the Somer Valley for about 25 years. I've worked very successfully with Baines Council for around 15 years up to 2016. I'm here to talk about the employment prospects of the proposed Somer Valley Enterprise Zone. According to the master plan, somewhere between 700 to 1,000 office and R&D jobs are expected to be located at SVES. This is at least more than half of its jobs and therefore a major part of its overall viability. However, SVES will be in direct competition with Bath Quays and Bristol Temple Quays developments for workers, and historical patterns of commuting suggest it's highly unlikely that the Somer Valley will attract office workers from Bristol or Bath. For example, 5 times more people commute out of the Somer Valley to Bath than commute into the Somer Valley from Bath. If the Somer Valley and Bath and Bristol all have a plentiful supply of labour going forward, it might not be a problem. However, the two Baines EZs between them are expected to account for almost all of the Baines' total employment and labour supply growth forecast over the coming years, leaving almost nothing for non-employment land sectors such as education, health, retail, tourism and leisure. Even if the forecasts are wrong, and there is a plentiful supply of labour going forward, SVES would still suffer from skills shortages as there is a complete mismatch between the skills profile of the residents of the Somer Valley and the office and R&D jobs that will be at the enterprise zone, which means that the Somer Valley enterprise zone would have to get many more office and R&D workers from the rest of the west of England to fill those jobs, who would have to travel there by car, which is completely out of step with the SVES principles of design and council's decision will. These issues would make selling SVES to any major office-based and or R&D businesses an incredibly hard sell. The main reason why these issues haven't been flagged previously is because of an out-of-date evidence base being used by the council's in the council's decision-making. For example, Baines has 3,000 fewer workers than were planned into the council's current economic strategy as a direct result of COVID and Brexit. That's about £125 million per annum of Baines' output. It's the highest reduction in unexpected labour supply in the southwest, along with Exeter. Moving on to the issue of homeworking, and as evidence-based, it's clear that the pandemic inspired a homeworking revolution in the UK that has serious implications for the future of traditional offices and new office developments. Many parts of Baines are now akin to hidden business parks in that they have such high concentrations of workers in home offices. Entirely related to homeworking, there are around 10 often interrelated key drivers of the future of work, which have implications for new office development. They include such issues as the ageing workforce, sustainability and artificial intelligence. To what extent does the Baines forthcoming local plan look to be considering these issues? A quick look at the 300 pages of the local plan options document reveals very few mentions of homeworking or hybrid working and no mentions whatsoever of the future of work, artificial intelligence, co-working or an ageing workforce. However, there is still time to address these issues. When all of the above is considered, my one single recommendation to Baines Council is to wait for the draft local plan which is due out this year, as I'm pretty sure by then all of the above issues will have been evidenced, explored and considered. Thank you for listening, and just to say all the hard economic evidence supporting this statement will be sent to the Council tomorrow in the form of supporting documents. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Plunkett-Cole. Ask Alison Herbert on behalf of Bath Bid to speak, please. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Alison Herbert. Thank you for inviting me to come and speak about the Council's new economic strategy. I'm here representing Bath Business Improvement District, so nowhere near the Summer Valley, but it's been fascinating. We work with over 650 businesses in the city centre who collectively invest in our work, which seeks to create a successful business environment. You will have seen, I hope, our team out and about. We deliver cleansing, security, partnership and promotional services to the city centre businesses of Bath. It's clear that this economic strategy is tackling some wicked problems, and bringing businesses with you will be essential for progress to be made. The challenge, as far as I see it, is to build on what we have, to create sustainable new business opportunities and to provide places for people to work and study locally. How do we build on a 2,000-plus year history of hospitality and manage the imminent challenges of flooding, increased temperatures, an ageing workforce and new technology, which will change the world of work forever? The bid, luckily for me, works with the businesses who are already here, not in the future. So I've just, in my 3 minutes, picked out a couple of the issues in the economic strategy which come up in our conversations. So infrastructure, you talk about a lot. We welcome the proposed focus on infrastructure improvements. Good internet and, even more fundamentally, actual phone signal is having an impact in the city centre and on its reputation as a place to do business. And the need for new business spaces is likely to be driven by new technology, hybrid and home working, and even new last-mile delivery warehousing, for example, on the edge of the city centre. And then the elephant in the room, you can't ever have a meeting with businesses in Bath without transport and access coming up. It's a pressing issue, and they talk about it all the time. It links to the wider issues already raised, actually, of recruitment and skills, the cost of housing in the city centre, where the average house price is significantly higher than the Baines average of £356,000. The visitor experience, and also to the challenge of adapting to new logistical arrangements, whether that's for deliveries, meeting your clients or your trade waste collections. There's a lot of stuff attached to transport and access. I'm pleased that you've mentioned housing affordability and a real honest acknowledgement that 78% of rural residents travel to work by car. We know that they're probably commuting, some of them into Bath. And the other thing is, I'm cutting it short because I'm running out of orange, with regards to the high street and the wider tourism economy, I'm really pleased to see that the importance of this part of Bath's commercial profile highlighted in the economic strategy. The impact of the visitor economy in Bath is felt way beyond the confines of Bath and North East Somerset Council and the businesses I work with in the city centre, and it really merits our attention. Focusing on the city centre user experience, whether they're residents, workers or visitors, so that making the right choice is also the most enjoyable choice, that's a good place to start, and businesses will be really pleased to see there's been a commitment to a time and movement study to understand how people move. And finally, The bid would be pleased to support the inclusive and positive engagement of existing businesses. The strategy's stated aim to work with business more closely is welcome, and I am here today to express Bath Bid's enthusiasm for collaborative strategic partnership work.
Thank you, Ms. Herbert. Since you were talking on behalf of all of the businesses in Bath, I gave you a couple of extra seconds. Robbie Bentley, please.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, councillors. As many of you know, I have been principally focusing on public transport around the region, around Bath and North East Somerset, but actually, a lot of what's actually going on, a lot of what's actually being said this evening is actually related to this same problem, and I'd like to cast your thoughts as to how we prevent ourselves from making big mistakes time and again. I'm sure many of you will be familiar with the development in the area of Bradley Stoke, which is now part of South Gloucestershire Council's Alls area, back in the 1970s, in the early days of the old Avon County Council, and how huge a mistake it was to just dump 15,000 homes into open field. You've got the same problem, except that it's actually with offices and industrial or facilities, okay? And you've got to be very careful about what it is you're actually going to be offering these new business customers of yours, and that you do not actually, in doing so, displace an existing customer base that is already actually wanting to develop that area in their own and admittedly slower way. I'd like to actually press the economic case. How important is it to make £1 million? Okay? Is it important to make it fast, or is it important to make it slow, or is it just important to make it? Okay? I'll speak from a slightly more entrepreneurial perspective in that it's actually important to make it. Doesn't matter how fast you actually make it, because at the end of the day, the people who actually grow up into that area get bedded in, and the costs of being into that, of developing in that way, tend to be spread out over the longer term, which makes it a whole lot cheaper. It also makes it cheaper for you as councillors to do it in that way. So before you go and actually make any kind of decision on where you are going to impact people's lives, those people who are already settled there, who are already contributing to the whole of the constituent authority, okay, you want to be considering whether or not it is those people you're doing it for, rather than prospective new people that you might want to bring in. However much you want to actually bring new people in, a bird in the hand is always worth two in the tree. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Robbie. Councillor Sean Hughes, please.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to be speaking primarily about the enterprise zone, the sort of an enterprise zone. I mean, my first comment really is it was one of the Lib Dem's manifesto commitments, so I'm surprised there's been such little engagement locally to explain to residents the justification and the benefits of the scheme. And this lack of engagement has created a lot of local confusion. On one hand, we're talking about climate and ecological emergencies. We're then talking about building on green fields. We're talking about building office space at the same time as we're selling off the business centre office space. So it has created some unnecessary confusion. The lack of engagement has also resulted in a lot of residents being unaware of both the LPPU and the LDO public consultations. Most residents weren't aware of their existence, and those that did access them found them difficult, if not impossible, to navigate. So there has been problems with this process. But I think it's important that we make residents aware that one of the reasons that this is happening is we're paying the price effectively for poor decisions of the past. We've allowed our commercial space to be covered in housing without really much thought to where those residents are then going to work. So we've got the Purnell site in our area, a mile from this site, 600 houses built on it. We've got the BMW site, you've got the Bath Press site, you've got the One Site Business Centre, all industrial and commercial spaces that have been covered in housing. So we're now in a position where we need to create more industrial space. Another reality is that we're still going to build more houses. There's a proposal in this draft local plan to build 500 houses in Farrington Gurney, which I would say is unsustainable and I would totally object to. But on top of that, Somerset want to build 500 houses on our doorstep. There's more than 1,000 houses already in the plan to build in Midsummer and Radstock. So we're going to be building thousands of houses, and those people are going to need somewhere to work. So we need the job creation. We also have an unacceptably high level of residents needing to commute at the moment. And without intervention, that's just going to get worse. And if it gets worse, we won't be able to meet our carbon reduction targets. I would say with the local plan, I think it's time that we should be very honest with our residents about the difficult decisions that we're going to have to make. It's clear that we've got to build 14,500 more houses in the next 20 years, and even if we use all the brownfield sites we have available to us, that will cover probably less than half of that number. So there's a huge amount of complex issues in this situation, and too many for me to cover in 3 minutes. So I would just say, on balance, I'm broadly in support of this type of economic development, but it needs more work to ensure that we get the minimum impact and the maximum benefits. One last comment, I would say that I wouldn't be in favour of any compulsory purchase schemes. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hughes, for your statement. Councillor Hansel, please.
Thank you. Good evening. I am Councillor Duncan Hansel. I have 3 points to make on the local plan consultation. Firstly, in 2014, a lady spoke to me in the street asking if I could help her. Notices had gone up around local farmland stating that permissive footpaths were to be closed because of the withdrawal of DEFRA funds for public access. This lady explained that she walked with a young son across the fields from Salford to school in Keynsham. I contacted the farmer, who kindly granted this lady special access, and he agreed to allow me to try to find a solution to the withdrawal of funds for public access to the paths. The outcome was an imaginative scheme whereby the Salford Community Association collects £3,000 in donations annually to compensate the farmer for loss of land and other costs. In return, over 3,000 metres of footpath have remained open for the last 10 years for members of the public to enjoy. No one checks if users of the paths have donated. The paths are used by Salford residents and can be used by visitors from other areas, including Keynsham and Bath, freely at any time. This scheme demonstrates a classic Liberal approach of enabling a community to solve a problem for itself, a scheme not dependent on councils or taxation. It reflects Salford at its best, enterprising, community-minded and inclusive. Where are these paths? They're on the site options Salford South and Salford West. As Crispin Truman, CEO of the Campaign for the Protection of Rural England, said, people deserve countryside on their doorstep where there is space for nature that everyone can explore and enjoy and which is accessible to all. My second point is the local plan consultation papers, page 61, addresses a location described as west of Bath. The text includes the sentence, therefore it is considered to be unlikely that an allocation for development in this location will be capable of inclusion in the draft plan. Similar wording is on page 76. No location map has been provided in your agenda papers. What member of the public would spend any time giving an opinion or submitting evidence on this west of Bath option, knowing that the outcome has in effect been predetermined? This west of Bath section in the consultation would be better for a rewrite. The third point I want to make, the final point, Baines has a 6-year land supply. There will be non-controversial options for housing, such as at Hicks Gate, that will come forward that do not change the essential character of villages like Salford. This gives Baines time in the planned period up to 2042 to create a new community in North East Somerset from scratch. Imagine the excitement and prestige of developing a showcase village with the very best of design, energy conservation and community facilities. Baines can demonstrate excellence in planning that can be a showcase to the whole country. So summing up, the local plan should seek to preserve the essential character of existing settlements. The local plan consultation needs to capture all views, and the local plan should be bold and inspiring.
Thank you very much, Senator. I'm being exceptionally generous with the red light this evening. Councillor Pankania, please.
Thank you. So tonight we have a long and complex report on the local plan options consultation. At the heart of this is the aim to create a framework for a sustainable future for our community. And in my ward, where I'm the councillor, Coombe Down, we already have difficulties at play. And these difficulties are undermining the plan. What is the problem? So we have historic, very historic allotments at Coombe Down. It is a village setting. They have been there for 130 years. When I first arrived in Coombe Down, the first thing I ever did was to apply to be an allotment holder there. And it took me 5 years to get there. So these are really precious local village issues. They're local village allotments. It's more than an allotment. It's a little village amenity. So we want these allotments. They are providing a healthier, sustainable village life. It's a community life. And this is a non-renewable resource now under threat. So there are 64 plots we have, and there's space for 50 more. And this is just the tip of the iceberg, because the plot holders, their family, the family members, it is a community that is involved with the Coombe Down allotments. And for several years, our community has felt we have a grey cloud over the leasehold, because the lease was always short-term leases. We couldn't really invest in our allotment and build those polytunnels and all those things that we wanted to do, bring in soil and grow things. But we remain positive, we remain optimistic that we can continue digging and hopefully this allotment issue will be resolved. Unfortunately, we've recently heard that the landowner wishes to terminate the lease, and that is why I am here. So here today, I have a petition in front of me, and I've looked through this petition, and there are 4,700 signatures since the 12th of December. Now, by way of context, I was just looking at this. That is more people than voted in the 2023 May elections in Coombe Down Ward. There is a lot of community sentiment in this here. So what we want is, I'm talking as a public health medicine expert, that the value of outdoor activities and growing our own produce is difficult to measure, but we know how important it is. In fact, on my way here, I was listening to Lord Blunkett talking about how just because he can't see, they often used to put him in a windowless room, and he could sense it, he could feel it. And that is the context I'm talking about, the open air, the space. I see the red light come up there, so I will make it brief now. So what we are asking for is, can we review the arrangement, the designation for our allotments? Because there is some noise which says, because there are some mineral rights issues, it cannot be designated as a green space issue. I think we can go back to this issue and look at it again. I think both are possible. I appreciate that you're already talking to the owners of the land, and we appreciate you talking to them. And one more request is, could the officers engage with us? Because we know a lot of context about our local allotments, and we could help them with this. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Did you want to present the petition?
I would love it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. That's all right. Final speaker, Mr. Willocks. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Dowie, a sixth form student in Norton Hill. Thanks for letting me speak tonight. As a young person contemplating university and a career, I, like many others, have been beset by worries about finding a place to live. Where will I end up? Will there be jobs to come back to in North East Somerset? Will there be somewhere to live? Affordable housing for young people is rare and always in demand. Many young people, me included, are forced to either stay at home to save money or move to somewhere it is cheaper to live. Those less fortunate often have no choice but to suffer surf, or worse, end up on the streets. Although there are many jobs on offer, often these jobs cannot support living away from home, or even renting a place close to work. This means many are forced to find more achievable housing further away from these jobs and commute, or go back to living with their parents while they begin the nigh impossible task of finding a house to buy, or even finding a job that can support the rent charged by private landlords. In fact, this week it was reported that 1 in 10 young people end up having to turn down job offers as they simply cannot afford to accept them. According to the FCA, there has been a drop in the number of people under 30 being able to buy their first home. Over the past few years, at the same time, the number of people over 50 buying their first home has risen by 30%. Am I going to have to wait until I'm in my 50s to buy a house? In my personal struggle to find work, I tried working in many different fields, none of which were accessible or able to support a move away from home. For those with rich parents, it's not an issue. But this is the reality of most young people. The council needs to address this growing inequality and support young people in their hunt for local jobs and local housing, so that we can make the most of our potential. So, whilst I am supportive of the new local plan, I want you councillors to ask yourselves, are you doing enough for young people? For future generations, will you be working to ensure that people like me can consider a future here in North East Somerset, the place where I've grown up? When teenagers like me leave education, will there be jobs and affordable housing here, or will they be packing us off to Bristol, or Swindon, or London, and telling us to use our money to buy a car and keep filling it with fossil fuels? With the new local plan, you can encourage every community to think about how they will be supporting their younger residents who are currently living with their parents. You can also insist that developers build affordable homes. Words are great, but you must deliver.
Thank you, Mr. Willocks. It is a genuine pleasure to hear from a younger voice. Thank you very much. Yeah. Okay, that is the end of public statements session. We'll move on to the main business. I will give an opportunity for people to leave if they don't want to listen to the main body of the meeting. I know some of our counters may want to shuffle away. They are taking part. Members of the public can leave if they wish as well. And then we will move on to item 8.
Point of order, Chair. Questions from councillors. We're normally allowed to ask supplementary questions. Are we not allowed to do so tonight?
Good question. I shall find out.
Thank you.
I apologise. I wasn't aware that you wanted to do a supplementary question, but it's well within the rules for you to do so because you did submit a question. So by all means, please ask your supplementary question. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Chair. And it is to do with the Summer Valley Enterprise Zone. I asked 2 questions and I have 2 supplementaries to ask. So the first one is, I do welcome the principle of high quality jobs in our area, but I still have concerns about the Summer Valley Enterprise Zone. And I'd like to challenge the answer that I've got about my first one, which is about land negotiation. And it says in the answer I have received, discussions and negotiations for land have commenced.
Could this be confirmed? Because as far as I know, no negotiations with the main landowner have taken place for quite some time. Surely at this point in time with the Somer Valley Enterprise Zone, we should be reaching a conclusion. And like my fellow councillor beside me and other speakers, I really would guard against the dangers of going down the compulsory purchase order. So I'd like to know about negotiations. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor, would you like to answer? Would you like some time?
I think I can. I have discussed this issue with officers before, and the answers that I've received is that negotiations first took place back in 2019. My understanding is that all the landowners have property agents and have been taking advice in the matter. And negotiations were taking place. They have gone relatively quiet at this point, so I don't believe there's been any very recent communication, but certainly discussions have been taking place.
Thank you. I can't add anything else, so thank you for that, for clarifying that. My second question, my second supplementary question is again challenging the answer that I got. I'm very concerned about the traffic and what will happen to traffic movement in the area. And we are told that we can be confident that the proposed design of this massive roundabout is going to be fit for purpose. But I wonder when was the data collected to say that this roundabout is going to be fit for purpose. As one of our speakers has just previously mentioned, there's total chaos, as I'm sure many of you knew, when there was a slight obstruction on two roads in the area around where the Somer Valley Enterprise Zone is going to be. So is the data up to date that this modelling has been based on, and can we be assured it is fit for purpose? Thank you.
I think I know the answer to that question, Councillor Hodman, but I'd like to just take advice from officers on it to make sure I've got it right. So if I could give you that answer within 5 days, please. Thank you.
No, thank you, Mr. Harman. So I don't miss you in the future. Just please let Democratic Services know you would like to ask a supplementary question, and I'll make sure you're down on my list. Okay, thank you very much. Right, moving on to item number 8, consideration of matters referred to by policy development scrutiny bodies. There are none. So we'll move to item 9, which is building a fair, green, creative and connected Bath with North East Somerset. Councillor Paul Roper to move, please.
Thank you, Chair. So we have before Cabinet an ambitious new economic strategy, which, with your support, will enable us to strengthen and diversify our local economy over the next 10 years. I feel privileged to propose the recommendations in this paper. Despite the harsh funding constraints placed upon us by central government, our administration is taking matters into its own hands to develop our local economy and communities by launching this strategy. With this strategy, our administration is setting out our stall with a far-reaching plan to build a fair, green, creative and connected Bath with North East Somerset. We have worked closely with our key stakeholders over the last 18 months to shape our shared vision for our local area. We're all singing from the same hymn sheet. Together, we recognise that we all have a stake in ensuring that our economy and our communities thrive. The economic strategy spans the decade to 2034 and contains 6 pillars. And if you will bear with me, I shall list them all. They are creating a greener economy that is net zero and nature positive, supporting our residents to access good work, establishing Bath and North East Somerset as a centre of inclusive innovation and creativity, creating resilient businesses by building a diverse, creative and sustainable base, addressing housing affordability and ensuring residents have access to high-quality homes, and finally, supporting stronger places, building resilience and sharing prosperity more fairly. The strategy further outlines a 10-point delivery plan, some of which we're already delivering, for example Bath Quays and the wider Milsom Quarter Master Plan, which will be a flagship for sustainable development. So why is this strategy so important? It is the platform from which we can move to a fairer, sustainable and thriving future for our local area. It forms an integral part of our larger plan. It's the blueprint we need to demonstrate that our vision is robust. The economic strategy opens the doors for our local authority to attract the vital funding, both private and public, that is essential to enable us to implement our plans. There is a time-honoured saying in the business world, failing to plan is planning to fail. Now we have the strategy and the delivery plan, we can start working on the implementation, bringing it to life. In our local authority, we are very fortunate to have valuable council assets, like the Roman Baths. We're blessed with 2 outstanding universities, the Royal United Hospital, a double World Heritage classification, and historic market towns and significant businesses, all in a wonderful, unique setting. For the most part, our residents are highly qualified and unemployment is relatively low. But not everyone in Bath and North East Somerset is sharing in our overall prosperity. Economic growth in our area over the last 10 years has been sluggish. Wages here are below the national average. Many residents are struggling with rising housing costs. Inequalities in health and employment are growing, creating a 2-tier economy. I would like to draw particular attention to gaps in educational attainment in our area. Education is fundamental to improving young people's life chances. Unless we act, we risk consigning generations of young people to futures in which their opportunities are reduced. I believe Councillor May will shortly be addressing this point specifically. Some of our residents then are being left behind, and we cannot allow this cycle to continue. Overshadowing everything is the climate emergency, which is at the forefront of our administration's attention. Our council declared a climate emergency in 2019, and we are serious about our commitments to sustainability. We must reach our carbon objectives of net zero. We're acutely aware that we must respond to the climate emergency and do so now. Our climate emergency goals are woven into this strategy. I would like to thank everybody involved in the development of this, and particularly our Future Ambition Board partners, who are our key stakeholders and who have worked so hard to develop this groundbreaking strategy. It's the fundamental prerequisite to a fairer, sustainable and thriving future for our local area. Thank you, Cabinet, for your support of this flagship initiative. I'm very happy to propose the recommendations, and so I move recommendations 2.1 and 2.2. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Redbird. Councillor Rigby to second.
Thank you, Chair, and I am delighted to second this proposal. The Council has many responsibilities and it touches people's lives in different ways at different times. But 3 strands which are more or less continuous throughout all the middle years are where people live, where they work and how they get between the 2 of them. We've heard a lot recently about the Council plans for housing, and we're working very hard on future transport plans. So, to add to the right homes in the right places and enabling choice on transport, we now have in front of us an economic strategy to agree and to implement. Bath and North East Somerset is a rich and varied landscape with historical and present links to many industries. This economic strategy balances our legacy whilst being very forward-looking and future-proofing against changing trends. As an example, the lockdown period showed us that we had a reliance on tourists and students within the city of Bath. And absolutely we need to ensure that our offer to visitors and to those who choose to make Bath their home while studying is sustainable, appropriate and flexible to changing needs. But we also need to ensure that we have other compelling offers and focus on other areas within the authority so that there are employment opportunities near where people live and there are affordable housing solutions near to where the jobs are, and to minimise unnecessary travel between the 2. I welcome this strategy in front of us as it sets out a roadmap for our economic future. Even having this plan adopted would be a very good first step forward. A good friend of mine sent me a link to an article published over the weekend about the Horizon scheme, something we used to enjoy free and unfettered access to in the good old PB, that's pre-Brexit days. And it looks like we may be able to access this again in the future. But the key word here is might. The Council will never have the sort of money to invest in everything needed to drive the economy. Our job is to make us as attractive a place as possible to do business ensure that we focus on sustainability and stand in to correct any market failures. And if by having this policy in front of us this evening, it makes it easier for businesses to apply for grant funding, that in and of itself has to be a good thing. I am in no doubt that Paul and his officers have worked incredibly hard on this document and are to be very highly commended, and I'm very happy to second it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rigby. I will move to the debate. I've got Councillor May. Yep.
Thank you, Chair. As I said earlier on, I'm the Cabinet Member for Children and Young People. This is an excellent economic long-term strategy which I fully support. My point to reinforce this comment is that children are an essential part of our future economic drive. Baines has excellent schools, with most being rated by Ofsted as good or better, but as many are within the academy system, that leaves the influence we have as councillors is as representatives of the community, families, and most importantly the children within our system is quite difficult. The report highlights the issue on page 10 of their report, and whilst we have one of the most highly performing local education authority areas in the country, this creates a significant issue of the size of attainment gap for a small proportion of our children. Indeed, we're one of the worst in the country for a key stage 2 attainment for free school meals children. We need to think about our strengths within our economy to address this group of students, including practical work experience, apprenticeships and working with families. So my delight at the strategy addressing this inequality means I hope that my colleagues will include the issue of using our strengths and of our partners' strengths to engage effectively moving forward as a key issue within the key delivery plans. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor May. Councillor Warren.
Yeah, thank you. Our Council declared a climate emergency in March 2019, committing us to provide the leadership to enable the district to reach carbon neutrality, followed by an ecological emergency in 2020. The package of measures we're bringing forward this evening shows how we are embedding net zero, nature positive systemically throughout our work as a council. Tonight's agenda builds upon our corporate strategy, embedding sustainability into all council decision making. The new economic strategy delivers on that. It is designed using the principles of donut economics, which aim to meet the needs of all within the means of the planet. We are embedding that approach with our partners across the district and to inform delivery across council services. Later this evening we will launch consultation on our new local plan, bringing forward options that go further on key climate, nature and sustainability policies and aiming to shape development across the district so as to minimise environmental impact. And finally we will discuss the Somer Valley Enterprise Zone, an important element in delivering the business space needed to ensure our residents can access local jobs. Our new economic strategy has sustainability at its heart. Building on the principles of donut economics, it will deliver for people and planet. As our success measures, we are focusing partly on household disposable income, a measure of how the economy is working for people, as well as on carbon emissions, equality and biodiversity. It sets out specific action for a greener economy. We will investigate how green bonds can help residents to invest in and benefit from local projects supporting climate and nature. We will support green skills development, training and apprenticeships. We will support local green jobs by increasing capacity for renewable energy generation, as well as for installing energy-saving measures and for building highly energy-efficient new homes. This will reduce carbon emissions from heat and buildings whilst making warmth affordable. We will support businesses who want to become net zero nature positive in their operations, ensuring they can access free surveys and green business grants, and we will promote our local B Corps. We will promote Bath with North East Somerset as a test bed for the development, assessment and implementation of novel green technologies across transport, energy and the built environment. We will continue to support real choice in transport through our Transport Action Plan and Active Travel Master Plan. These will promote sustainable modes with the objective not only of reducing carbon emissions from transport but also of promoting mental and physical health whilst also reducing traffic congestion. We will explore nature-based solutions to increase biodiversity and encourage sustainable tourism. We will develop a local food strategy and support the adoption of regenerative farming whilst providing support to rural businesses with diversification. The economic strategy is an opportunity to set the direction of the economy of Bath with North East Somerset for the next decade, and I'm very pleased that that direction will be towards net zero nature positive. So I'll be supporting tonight's recommendations.
Thank you, Councillor Warren. There's no more people signal to speak, so I'll move to the vote. All in favour? That is unanimous, so the paper's passed. Thank you very much. We'll move on to item number 10, which is the Local Plan Options Consultation Local Development Scheme. Councillor McCabe to move, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. So every 20 years, a local authority gets to set a new local plan. This sets out the policies by which all planning decisions will be made. It also sets out where new housing will be built, what type it will be, and where land will be designated for other needs such as employment. Today we are considering the options document. This primarily sets out the potential areas that could be allocated for house building, employment and renewable energy, as well as many areas of development management policy. And this marks a considerable amount of effort on behalf of officers over this past year, for which I'm very grateful. It's also informed by and will help to deliver our corporate strategy and economic strategy. So this huge piece of work began over a year ago when we began talking to residents and stakeholders, and it's been going through our all-party local development framework steering group. And it's worth noting that many council administrations do not bother to consult with other parties on the development of a new local plan. So it is to the credit of all the administrations here in Baines that we as a council do. It's something that I am keen to maintain. What this means is that all political groups have had the opportunity to take part in the drafting of this material, albeit on a confidential basis. So all groups have been able to submit their initial thoughts in advance of the public consultation. So this options document that we are intending to put out for consultation to residents and other parties is the results of this consultation, which will inform the draft of our new local plan, and that will be out for consultation later in the year. There's also another timing element to consider. So one of the key factors locally is the strategic lead that is taken by the West of England Combined Authority in terms of planning for the economy, planning for transport and planning for housing right across the region. Unfortunately, in an effort to seemingly qualify as the worst mayor in the country, Mayor Dan Norris pulled Wecker out of this regionally significant role. This has left the four authorities rushing to complete new local plans because that strategic overview is now missing. We are having to work closely with each other to try and achieve this regional coordination. And remember, not having a valid local plan in place creates a free-for-all for developers. Hence the urgency. Luckily for Baines, we prepared a partial update, which we completed a year ago, and that's given us a more up-to-date plan than our neighbouring authorities, but that means it's left us slightly behind them in preparing a new local plan covering the longer term. So what have been our main drivers? Well, we want to create a fairer and more prosperous and more sustainable economy. And we really want to maximise the delivery of housing that is more affordable. Clearly, the government asking us to build 14,500 new homes in the authority area is a huge challenge. So this work presents sites put forward by various parties, all addressed for their suitability and sustainability. And just touching on a comment that was made earlier about that 14,500 homes, luckily for us, we have some 6,000 in the pipeline, and we expect over this time period to get a windfall of about 2,000 homes that we weren't necessarily expecting. That's just normal, which means that we've got to find 6,500 homes over the next 20 years, which is far more achievable than if we were going straight in at 14.5. But we have to respond to both the housing crisis and the affordability challenges. So our suggested possible sites and their uses will be available for residents to have their say. The other big driver, of course, is the climate and ecological emergencies. So we are proposing that our enhanced requirement for net zero in terms of energy use in new builds now be accompanied by a new and tougher consideration for carbon neutrality in construction materials as well. And we will also be testing a biodiversity net gain of 20% on new builds and see how close we can get. Because it's in all these matters, we're treading a very fine line between our aspirations and what the final planning inspector will say is viable for developers. So evidence is key, and the results of the consultations with residents count as evidence. So in order to facilitate a robust consultation, we are creating a web book approach so that participants can view the part of the plan they're interested in and indicate their stance on a matter, provide additional evidence, or just make general comments, but in a way that their contributions are correctly allocated to a particular item. There will also be hard copies in our libraries, and officers have made considerable efforts to engage with often hard-to-reach groups to secure their participation as well. There's one more small change to the document in front of you. At some point, as some of the supporting evidence to the local plan won't be published until shortly after the launch, and in order to give people a bigger say, we're going to be extending the consultation period to 8 weeks, meaning that comments can be submitted up to the 8th of April. So, with thanks to our planning policy officers and the members of the LDF steering group from all parties, I ask Cabinet to approve this document for consultation as directed in 2.1 to 2.5. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Ball, second.
Can I firstly congratulate Councillor McCabe on his excellent speech and well put forward. I've been involved in planning policy for 30 years now. Since 1993 I've been County Council, structure plans, all these plans for bring forward. The first sustainable plan we had was 2014, the core strategy brought in. It stopped development where people didn't want it. A local plan is there to ensure development in the right places, business in the right places as well, in consultation and working with the communities and cross-party. In the last administration we ran, I inherited a joint spatial plan being put together by the Conservatives on this council, plus the other parties in North Somerset, Bristol, South Gloucester. It collapsed in a heap because there was political interference in the plan-making process. I questioned the barrister at a WECA meeting. It was confirmed that the leaders had their hand in there changing designations and locations of houses, which is not acceptable at all. This is why the LDF steering group is so essential and so important. That cross-party support is there. We don't always agree with each other. We don't have to agree with each other. Sometimes inside the political parties there's also divides as well. But it allows us to get the good base. And those members go to communities and consult their residents as well and speak to them. Some councils will not like the outcomes of some of the decisions that will be made, but they are sustainable. Like the 2014 core strategy, this plan will go forward, it will be adopted by the inspector and be acceptable, and it will stand its time. I'm sure it will actually succeed greatly. Unlike other local plans, local authority, South Gloucester's collapsed, Bristol collapsed, North Somerset collapsed. We're the only local authority to have a plan that actually worked because we do it the right way. I live by second.
Thank you, Councillor. Well said. Move to the debate. Councillor Warren.
Thank you. So, as Councillor McCabe said, the local plan is an absolutely key document in ensuring that a planning authority can require sustainable green construction and development in sustainable locations. So our options document is informed by our economic strategy, and it's a rare opportunity that only comes along once a decade or so to set the parameters of the place that we live in for a generation. After ratifying a local plan update only last January that put Bath and North East Somerset on the map with the leading net zero new build policy in England at the time, as well as groundbreaking biodiversity requirements, it's exciting to have an opportunity now to take that ambition still further. Our Green Transformation team have been working closely with their planning policy colleagues to develop a policy framework that will drive forward our climate and ecological emergency declaration and support development enabling Bath and North East Somerset to become carbon neutral, nature positive. So Councillor McCabe has mentioned the proposed requirements around embodied carbon, which means the carbon emissions associated with the construction process. And also the proposal to increase the requirement for biodiversity net gain from 10 to 20%. But also, I'm particularly pleased that on renewables, we're proposing an option to safeguard our best potential sites for wind energy, linking the individual planning applications back to the Council's climate target of 300 megawatts renewable capacity, whilst retaining flexibility to adapt to any further changes in our climate targets, for example, in response to new evidence. We continue to lead the local nature recovery strategy for the west of England, and Natural England have been so impressed with our leadership on green infrastructure on projects including Bathscape, Waterspace, Summer Valley Rediscovered and Chew Valley Reconnected that they've chosen to undertake further work with us. So following on from last year's local plan partial update, which put us in pole position on environmental protections in planning policy, we are proposing this year to start to go still further, testing the limits of national planning policy in response to our climate and ecological emergency declarations, and I am happy to support the recommendations.
Thank you, Councillor Warren. I apologise, there was somebody leaving rather noisily there. Councillor May, please.
Thank you, Chair. This report is going to be setting out the options, a fair process that will be allowing both developers and communities to actually express their views. So it's a really important stage moving forward. No decisions are made, and I think that's really fair. I represent one area that is possibly affected by the local plan proposals. But the council has gone out of its way to consult with the local community. The planners and ACOM actually came out, met, and they've reflected a lot of the comments were made by the local community in that plan for consultation. I think Councillor Ball is right. After the failure of the JSP, which was blatantly political, it was important that we actually work with all the political parties, and Councillor McCabe, when he took over, has continued doing that, and I think that's been a really quite a dynamic exercise to get to this point. But we've got to do the thing properly and correctly. I think I would just request, and I've already made this clear to Councillor McCabe, about making sure that we get the access to the report to make it as simple as possible for the public so that they can access the site and get in to report things. And we need to make sure, for my area, there's 5 different options being discussed, that the plans are very clear so that people can read them and make a decision based upon what they can see. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor May. We'll move to the vote. If you want to sum up statements, Councillor McCabe? No? Okay, we'll move to the votes. All in favour? That is unanimous. And while we're on the topic, I would encourage every single resident to take part in this plan. I cannot underestimate its importance. It will be guiding the economic strategy, where houses go, where development goes for the next 10 years and beyond. So it is important you have your say. Right, we'll move on to item number 11, which is Summer Valley Enterprise Zone Local Development Order. Councillor Roper to move, but I'll just say in advance that Councillor Roper will be making a longer than normal statement because he'll be talking on all 3 papers. Yeah, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. So we have before Cabinet 3 papers relating to the Summer Valley Enterprise Zone. I've referred to the Summer Valley Enterprise Zone throughout this speech. I'm going to call it SVEZ from now on, just to save a bit of time. And all 3 of these papers require approval to enable delivery of the scheme. As Chair has just said, I'm planning to make one speech for all three papers, and we'll consider and vote on each separately. The SFES has been under consideration for almost 17 years. It's a very complex topic, and I think it's only right that I spend sufficient time to address some of the really important issues. So I apologise for talking for so long. I spoke earlier about the goals of our new economic strategy that's just been approved, and the SFES is an important part of delivery of that strategy, and it's also a manifesto commitment of this administration. The SFES is intended to create around 1,300 jobs of exactly the type we aspire to. Good quality, secure, well-paid, local jobs giving residents meaningful and fulfilling employment. That's 1,300 local jobs for the towns and villages and hamlets around Poulton, Westfield, Radstock and Midsummer Norton. That's a population of around 30,000 people. I've lived and worked in Bath for 43 years, which is a number I don't really care to contemplate, and I've witnessed many of the changes in person that I'm about to talk to you about. If we go back to the late 90s and early 2000s, nearly all the employment in the Somer Valley was local. Let's just remind ourselves of what's been lost. Great Mills DIY, a 100-store DIY chain, has had their headquarters in the old Mills site, and I estimate it employed 250 to 400 people. They were bought by Focus, and it was shut down in 2000. Welton Bibby Bag Manufacturing, 300 jobs in the heart of Midsummer Norton Town Centre. 300 jobs gone in 2013. And how can I not spend some time talking about Purnells and Sons, the printers? At its height, it provided 2,000 jobs. It closed in 2005. This was one of the most advanced printing companies in the world, and it was located in Poulton, of all places. Bringing in printing is a highly technical and skilled profession, and it just shows what this community is capable of, given the right opportunity. The legacy of Purnells today is a Facebook group of around 300 ex-employees, Purnells Bowling Club and Sports Ground. The rest of this once famous site is now housing. So we have more people with few opportunities to work nearby. In my estimation, well over 1,000 jobs have been wiped out in comparatively recent times. So what's the consequence of that? The local community, of course, adapted, and a lot of them now commute. They get in their cars and vans and they travel to work. And we wonder why the local road network is so busy. Census statistics from 2021 suggest that 30 to 50% of the economically active population in this area commute over 6 miles to work. The term out-commuting is referred to several times in the papers we have before us. Let's just look at one aspect of that and see what a barrier out-commuting is to residents, especially our youth and our young people. If you look at a family of 4 with 2 young adult children of working age living at home, what are your options for gainful employment working in a career or of an employer of your choosing? The first qualification you need is not training or academic awards. Firstly, you need a car. So, for this family, is that 3 or 4 cars that they need to actually have a choice of where they work? How is that affordable? It's a huge barrier, and this is what out-commuting means to many in these towns. It isn't fair, it disenfranchises our young people and the less affluent, and it limits their opportunities. What hopes and aspirations do our young people have in these areas for their future? All they see is no local opportunities and a lifetime of commuting miles to work. In short, we now have dormitory towns with few quality employment opportunities. In addition, in the coming years, as we've just heard, more houses will be built in the area, and if we don't take actions, things are only going to get worse in employment terms. What we're trying to do is to correct that. We need to correct that. We need to create opportunity and aspirations for both current and future generations in these communities. This authority recognised in 2007 that the jobs lost needed to be replaced. This is when it originally allocated the land we're considering today as employment land. It was left to the free market to bring the development forward. It failed to do so, and it's probable that delivery was seen as too complex and too expensive. This administration has now stepped in, and what we have before us today is the mechanism by which we can deliver this pioneering project, a green business park. There are 3 papers that I am proposing today. We have a commitments paper that I will discuss later. We have the adoption of the Local Development Order, the LDO, and then the In Principle Statutory Mechanisms paper that enables delivery of the scheme. The LDO paper enables adoption of the LDO by Cabinet and addresses the market failure in delivering SVES. It is a planning framework that, by way of compliance applications, prospective developers and businesses can seek planning permission on a de-risked basis. It gives them more certainty that an application will be approved, provided it meets with the strict criteria enshrined in the LDO. The LDO does not remove planning restrictions. It defines them in advance. It gives businesses certainty as to what they need to do to make a successful application. To enable the LDO to be brought forward to approval today, there's been a process that the Planning Authority has been through to ensure the scheme is compliant with all local and national policies. These policies and statutory consultees include an environmental impact assessment, ecology, arboriculture, air quality, conservation, archaeology, highways, drainage and flood risk, and many more. The list of hurdles this scheme has had to pass is extensive, and I can report that I'm able to bring these papers to Cabinet for approval today because the Local Planning Authority report has confirmed policy compliance. The report does acknowledge, as do we as an administration, that there is harm in implementing the enterprise zone in this area. But taken in the round, we believe, as does the Local Planning Authority report, that the benefits to the community outweigh the harm associated with using this site. But as an administration, we want to go further than the controls contained within the LDO paper. That is why we've developed a commitments paper that sets out our administration's ambitious objectives and vision in delivering an exceptional, net zero, sustainable green business park. We have put in place several mitigations and goals that we wish to achieve in making this an exemplar site, and my colleague Councillor Warren will touch on aspects of this commitment paper shortly. In a perfect world, we will be delivering these jobs on an existing brownfield site. There isn't one suitable nearby. The Welton Bibby site is only 12 acres, whereas the SVES site is 33. And with a mix of jobs and housing, Welton Bibby will not deliver jobs on the scales we require. It's also right in the town centre of Midsummer Norton. In short, it simply doesn't work. So we're left with the difficult decision to deliver the site on farmland. This does not sit comfortably with this administration, and it has been recognised that we cannot develop the site without very careful consideration, with mitigations in place to ensure that we comply with or exceed policy requirements and deliver a site to the highest environmental standards. There is insufficient time for me to discuss all aspects of this project in this speech today. I would, however, like to address some of the key issues and also challenge some of the misinformation that is circulating. I'll firstly talk about biodiversity. There will be a biodiversity net gain associated with this development. At full occupation of the site, we will deliver at least a 10% biodiversity net gain, some of which will be delivered off-site. We will retain 85% of the existing hedgerows on-site, and over 10,500 trees will be planted on-site. At the point that the scheme has a completed infrastructure, but no businesses in situ, there will be a 46% biodiversity net gain created on-site. As businesses populate the scheme, this gain will reduce, and at some stage we'll have to start to deliver the additional biodiversity off-site. This will be as local as possible, and certainly within the Somer Valley, to maintain our overall position of 10% biodiversity net gain. The LDO is valid for 25 years. Therefore, if and when our biodiversity net gain policies are enhanced through changes in the local plan, we will be able to accommodate those changes in the 5-yearly LDO review process that will take place. If the site has not been fully populated, then the new BNG targets will apply to those businesses planning to develop the site after policy change. We believe that we've addressed the environmental issues to the best of our abilities and to a high standard, whilst keeping the site commercially viable for occupiers and delivering the number of jobs we need. I'd like now to turn to employment. and the 1,300 jobs that we want to create. What essentially we're trying to do here is recreate the local, stable, high-quality employment that used to be provided by the now defunct employers in this area. It is true to say that the unemployment rate here is comparable to the rest of the authority, and it is relatively low. A view has been expressed that we do not need new jobs, but I think that is missing the point. A significant proportion of the local working population are having to commute long distances, and we are going to change that. When we deliver job opportunities locally, people will transition away from their commuting jobs to those provided much nearer to home. Many will be able to walk, cycle or take the bus to work, reducing traffic volumes and substantially improving the quality of life on all those who currently spend precious hours of their week commuting in their vehicles. These are strong motivators that will make people move their jobs closer to home. We also believe that young people in this area who are transitioning from education into employment, which happens every year, they will be excited by the industries that we wish to attract to this green business park, because no one is more aware of the climate emergency than those under 20. Now I turn to business and look at why the businesses will want to come to this site. One of the key factors that businesses consider in deciding whether to locate to a particular area is the proximity to a substantial workforce. I believe that with over 30,000 people living within just a few miles of this site, one of the primary attractions will be the local workforce. Businesses will not come here to attract employees from Bristol. If they want to attract employees from Bristol, they will build their businesses in Bristol, not on the Svez site. They will come here because they want the great people of Midsummer Norton, Radstock and Porton to work for them. Another reason they will come here is that the LDO is in place. I mentioned that the LDO will de-risk their application to move their businesses here. This gives them certainty. There is nothing that businesses like more than certainty, and we will be providing it. There's much talk of the evidence of lack of business appetite to move to the area's vacant commercial sites, and this is proof that there is simply no appetite to move here. The reality is that progressive employers have their own aspirations on sustainability and carbon emission reductions and reducing cost and providing top quality employment space to attract the calibre of employees that they need. Businesses are not investing in legacy properties from the 1970s and 80s with poor amenities, low energy efficiency and high running costs. They have their own sustainable aspirations and obligations and recognise that carbon emission reduction will almost certainly be regulated by statute. The new energy efficient buildings provided on site will be of primary interest to these businesses, and they will come precisely because of the state-of-the-art premises. Employees will also want to come because of the facilities will be modern and up to date. There is significant evidence that demand for A1 class accommodation is strong, and there is a huge shortage of that space in this authority. And just very briefly, the sort of businesses that we want to attract to this site, I refer to commitments paper item 1.3 that makes it clear that the businesses that we want to attract are those vital to our green economy, working in renewables, heat pumps, battery technology, power management systems and carbon reduction. And we also can't ignore the fact that one of the biggest battery factories in the country is going to be built down in Wellington, which is not very far away, and it wouldn't at all surprise me if there were feeder businesses on this site providing that battery factory. There's a whole raft of green technology businesses that are going to be proliferating in the next 2 decades. We have to do that. There'll be money available for them, and they need premises in which to operate. I'd like to turn to Midsummer Norton High Street. This authority is working as hard as it can to support the high streets of Radstock and Midsummer Norton, and there are a number of initiatives underway to regenerate and improve the amenities and public spaces, and I know that because I'm personally responsible for it and I meet with the officers all the time. The reality is that as an authority we can only do so much to ensure the regeneration of our high streets, and we somehow have to stimulate demand for the goods and services provided there and give entrepreneurs the confidence to invest in new high street enterprises. I can see no better way of doing this than creating 1,300 new jobs just a stone's throw from Midsummer Norton High Street. These local jobs are, in my view, not going to destroy Midsummer Norton High Street. They are part and key to helping regenerate it. I turn now to transport. It is a commitment of this administration to promote active travel and public transport and reduce car travel. With so many employees living locally and with the provision of suitable infrastructure, we expect a real modal shift in transport methods. People will be able to walk to work. The A362 that runs from Farrington Gurney to the Thicket Mead roundabout will be significantly improved and will promote active travel with a safe walking and cycle lane. Pinch points will be eliminated, traffic speeds unified and traffic flow improved. Thicket Mead roundabout will be substantially upgraded. I can also confirm that we've just received combined authority business case approval for the Summer Valley Links project that will deliver the active travel route from Farrington Gurney to the enterprise zone. This is major progress. There will also be a provision for bus stops at the enterprise zone, but given that delivery of the scheme is over 3 years away, we cannot at this point say precisely how the buses will be delivered. But preliminary discussions with First Bus have been very positive, and it's a commitment of this administration to ensure the provision of bus services to the site. This will further reduce car travel, my apologies, car travel. A very brief word on costs. The enabling works of the scheme that include road improvements, active travel routes and infrastructure development of the entire site will have come at a cost of around £30 million, and this is being funded by grant funding from various sources. So to conclude, officers have worked tirelessly to enable the local authority to reach this point, and I thank them for their efforts. They have faced many hurdles. Given the crippling financial constraints that most local authorities are facing, it is a credit to this authority that we're delivering on such complex infrastructure projects. There is more work to do now to move the project to delivery phase, and this is where I refer to the third and final paper, which is the in-principle statutory mechanisms paper. We need to approve this to authorise the officers to begin the process of land acquisition. Where we have got to now is a very significant achievement, and we're on the brink of being able to transform many of our residents' lives for the better. It's probably going to take 3 to 4 years to deliver the first jobs on site, and 7 to 10 years to get the site fully occupied. We need to get on with it. Climate change is happening now. We need to create the environment to enable reductions in carbon emissions and improve sustainability. There are school children now who will be of employment age when the jobs are being created. They need something to aspire to, something to look forward to, somewhere to work, jobs like their grandparents had. Our community needs these 1,300 jobs, and I commend these papers to the Cabinet approval. So I turn to the commitments paper, and I'm very happy to propose recommendations 2.1 and 2.2. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Roper. So for Councillor Warren to second item number 11 to start with. Thank you, Councillor.
Yeah, and I do want to start by thanking all of this evening's speakers on this topic. Like all my colleagues, I'm sure we're all very sympathetic to the strong feelings that these proposals are generating locally. So we've heard earlier this evening that we've set out an economic strategy that aims to support real choice in transport, support for greener businesses, as well as training opportunities in green industries for local people. This first paper this evening on our commitments in relation to the Summer Valley Enterprise Zone contains the means by which we can immediately start to deliver on that. And as Councillor Roper has explained, our vision is of 1,300 local green jobs for local people in an exemplar green business park. This development really will give Summer Valley residents the opportunity to reduce their carbon emissions from commuting. We know that the vast majority of Summer Valley residents currently commute out by car, often to Bath and Bristol, and we know that there are likely to be further housing developments coming forward in the valley, but this development will provide for local jobs. And the LDO structure we have heard, by which we are now progressing this green business park, along with the intention that the council should act as landowner and developer, mean that we retain control over the types of business who can occupy the site, the standard of energy efficiency to which buildings are constructed, and the biodiversity accommodated on site. The LDO ensures the development will be fully compliant with planning policy, but let me make clear that this is the bottom line. As the developer, the Council has the power to insist upon greater ambition. And in the coming years, that is what I hope that all of us as councillors here tonight pledge to do. as our Green Business Park takes shape, and I hope that local residents will join us too in holding future Bath and North East Somerset administrations to account for the quality of the environment that is created on site and the quality of local green jobs that it provides. It's worth noting that funding was approved by the West of England Combined Authority last week to progress the active travel route between Farrington Gurney and Old Mills Lane along the north side of the A362. At that point, the route will connect with infrastructure proposed through this scheme to provide a fully off-road route between Farrington Gurney and Midsummer Norton and on to connect with the Norton Radstock Greenway, giving local people a safe route to walk, wheel or cycle to work or school between the conurbations of the valley. We are committed to ensuring this infrastructure is in place before the site is occupied and have a plan to extend the cycle route onto Bristol. We're also committed to providing bus services along the route before occupation, as we've heard. We're also committed to ensuring the site is nature positive, not only through on-site measures, but additionally through off-site contributions to further enhance wild nature in Somer Valley. The baseline set in planning policy and enforced by the LDO is currently for 10% gain, but as you know, we have this evening put forward an options paper proposing that in future planning policy may require a minimum level of 20%. And remember that with the council as landowner, that's just the baseline. We can insist upon more. And we are currently planning 10 acres, which is about 7 football pitches of green infrastructure on the site, as well as 10,000 trees, and creating sustainable drainage ponds on site that will generate new wetland habitats. We are committed to minimising the impact on air quality of the development, with modelling projecting nitrogen dioxide at well below legal limits at all locations in the vicinity. Air quality is regularly monitored at hundreds of locations around Bath and North East Somerset, and both traffic and air quality will continue to be monitored on all approaches to the business park to ensure not only that legal limits are complied with, but also that measures are taken as necessary to ensure we see nitrogen dioxide on a downwards trajectory here as in other parts of the district. We are committed to creating an exemplar net zero green business park for new business and employment that will contribute to the development of a diverse, creative and sustainable local business base. It will provide a location to grow our green economy, seeking to attract established businesses as well as start-ups in sectors that we've already heard about. The energy efficient premises will provide businesses with a renewably powered net zero home of which they can feel proud and from which they can maximise their contribution to tackling our environmental emergencies. And the Council is committed to supporting them in this. On that note then, Councillors, I'm pleased to commend the commitments paper to the Cabinet.
Thank you very much for second, Councillor Warren. I move to the debate. Councillor Bull.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Very much appreciated. I thought that Councillor McCabe made a good speech, but Councillor Roper had done him by a long way. Excellent presentation. You actually covered every single angle of what people might want to say tonight and answer some of the questions. And I see some of your faces weren't happy with the answers you were giving. Economic development was my portfolio between 219 and 221. Councillor Myers, ex-Councillor Myers, chaired a steering group with local people coming in. Farrington Gurney Parish Council always turned up. Show an example, Councillor Hardman turned up most of the time. Very few others actually engaged as much as they possibly could have in those 2 years. I had that. It's a crying shame really, because it could have been much better if they all engaged properly. This is a bold, ambitious plan. Ever since I've been a councillor, I've heard the words regeneration of the Somer Valley. And that's 33 years. It hasn't been done till now. This needs doing. It needs to be a balanced area which matches in with the local plan. With more housing appearing, more jobs will be required. There'll be more housing in Somer Valley. We will certainly it's going to happen because we have to keep pace with a growing population. I was quite shocked when I looked up some populations yesterday to find the UK population is now larger than France, a country far bigger than us. We need jobs for local people. We need to ensure people aren't travelling. New housing being built, people will want to work. We don't particularly want cars travelling to Bristol. We don't particularly want cars travelling into Bath, across here. I'm sure the local community and local parish councils don't want it either. So this may be controversial, but it's bold, it's ambitious. It ticks 90% of all the boxes. We can improve it more, and we will do so with the LDO process, which allows us to adapt every 5 years. I'm happy to support.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor McCabe.
Thank you, Chair. I recall, as an entrepreneur, when I co-founded what is now a multi-million-pound company, one of the biggest challenges was finding somewhere to base ourselves. We started out in an office of somebody, in a room in somebody else's office, and then once the company had launched, we moved to Keynsham, and then had nice offices in Keynsham, and then the landlord decided he could earn more money from converting it to flats, and so we were forced to move again. So what this offers is that sort of security of a purpose-built business unit, which is something that I think a lot of startups particularly will be looking for, and certainly would have done us a lot of favours. We're now in permanent offices, and it's a multi-million-pound company, so we were all right in the end. But how do we support that sort of entrepreneurship amongst particularly our young people? I was in Radstock looking at heat from mines recently, and somebody was talking about how the miners used to nip home for lunch. They used to cycle home for lunch. And that really brought home what a different world we're living in right now. I have never been able to nip home for lunch until lockdown. That was the first time I realised I lived in a really nice house. So you realise then the consequences to a community when over half of its economically active residents work somewhere else, and they take that income and spend it on cars and fossil fuels, and they spend it on food and drink in other employment centres, as Councillor Roper has touched on. So is it really the case that us boomers and Gen Xers, with our 4x4s and our posh jobs we can do from home, and with our self-promoting online profiles, are telling young people, you can't have jobs here? And is it really the case that we value a field of brassicas over the future prosperity of our young people, youngsters who are still at school, doing their GCSEs and A-levels, youngsters who will be looking after us when we're old and infirm, or older and more infirm? Okay, so whilst I completely sympathise with Mr. and Mrs. Fowler, because I would be saying the same thing if it were my field, and I know what it's like to know every single inch of your land and someone's coming to take it away. I know what that is, because my fields have been earmarked in the local plan twice. Luckily not when I owned them, but previously. And that danger still, always sits there. And you can't get away with it, and you don't know what's going to happen. Not yet. but I feel your pain, and I would be saying exactly what you're saying.
Councillor McCabe, but you address me, not the members of the public, please.
Okay, sorry, Chair. So we don't know where the next generation of youngsters, the next generation of entrepreneurs will come from, but we should be ensuring that there's an amazing space to work in Midsummer Norton. So that if you've grown up here, and you have a chance to set up a business here and live here, instead of being lost to our local economy, like so many others before them, they can stay here. For me, the Soma Valley Enterprise Zone represents hope. Hope in the future, hope for an economically prosperous future for our young people. And I am more than happy to be part of that message of hope by expressing my confidence in Midsummer Norton and its future. So I am happy to support.
Thank you, Councillor McCabe. Nobody else indicating to speak, so I shall move for the vote on item 11. All in favour? That is unanimous. Thank you very much. Move to item 12.
So we now come to the second paper, which is the LDO paper. Oh, sorry. So we come to the second paper, which is the LDO paper, which I've talked about extensively, so I don't intend to add further to that. So I move recommendations 2.1, 2.2 and 2.3 of the LDO paper.
Thank you, sir. But Councillor May to second, please.
Thank you, Chair. I wish to second the motion, and also to say that the presentation that you made this evening has been inspirational and has tried to deal with all the issues that we've heard from the community. We're not going to be able to satisfy everybody, but I think it is important that we actually do listen and try to respond as effectively as we can. And I've seen a lot of changes since you came in as a Cabinet member already, and I think if we need to make further changes, then we'll make them. As I mentioned in the economic strategy, this is an example of how we can use the opportunity to work with Bath College to create apprenticeships during and after construction and offer job experience options for young people in the area. This report provides a sensible process to move the scheme forward, bearing in mind that progress has already been protracted. You mentioned about 2007. I know it's been the talks in various years, even going back to ones like District Council. Of course, we have listened to the worries of speakers and the written submissions, and this has been reflected, I think, by you, Councillor Roper, in your presentation. But because of the site complications, we need to have the power to deliver a vital employment site set amongst the already commercial area that has been built up around the former Great Mills office and their sales warehouse. There has been considerable consultation and changes made to deliver the master plan that moves towards the many concerns expressed. We have a responsibility to provide local jobs in the area, and clearly this will not happen unless we adopt the high intervention approach. I fully support this recommendation. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor May. I shall see no one indicating to speak. I shall move to the vote. All in favour? That is unanimous. Thank you very much. Move on to item 13. Councillor Roper again. Please.
I'm new to this. We now come to the third paper and the final paper, which is the in principle statutory mechanisms paper, and I move all 6 recommendations, numbers 1 to 6. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Roper. Councillor McCabe to second, please.
Chair, I'm happy to second that a local development order provides specific permitted development rights within a defined area. This is in addition to the permitted development rights that the government sets as part of the town and country planning orders. So this bit just gives us the statutory mechanisms to be able to deliver the zone. So I'm happy to second.
Thank you, Councillor McCabe. There's nobody indicating to speak. All in favour? That is unanimous. Thank you very much. Right, I would like to bring an end to the meeting. Thank you everybody for attending. Those who watch on YouTube and online, I will officially close the meeting. Thank you very much.